Mani Padme Hum.
Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum.
First we visited the Red Fort. This was built by the Emperor Shah Jahan in 1638 and he finished it in 1648. After this we got in the bus and went along to the Gandhi Memorial. And the flame here was lit from the funeral pyre of Gandhi himself. Next it was to New Delhi, India Gate, the Houses of Parliament, and the Presidential Palace built by Lutyens. The further ride brought us to Humayun's tomb. This was built by his wife, the Persian-born Haji Begum, in the middle of the 16th century. The next day we caught the train to Chandigarh and then the drive up to Manali. From there it was walking via Padam to Lammeruru and then another quick four-wheel drive trip down to Leh. At Chandigarh, got off the train, 3 hours on a very comfortable train. So it's taking us for the next 8 hours or so. After the train it was a quick drive to Manali. higher we got, the wetter it got. Still the monsoon lingering on. The next day we had to ourselves to wander around Manali and see the sights. The next day we started our walk. This is shown on this satellite photograph here, following the ridges and valleys down through Padam, then following down the Zanskar River, over the Zanskar Mountains into the Indus Valley. The first part of the trek took us on an acclimatisation run over the Hampta Pass, camping at Saithan, Chika, Kargare, then over the pass to Siliguru and down to Chatru, where we caught the bus to Darcha. Starting off point is a dull day. It's got the 5-minute ride round here and that's set off. After about an hour and a half walking, very slippy, lot of mud. It's a light rain, it's not too bad. There's a mist in the valley. One spot. First day's camp. Cook tent and a mess tent. The boss's tent and a toilet tent. And a trekker tent. Beginning of day 2. Had breakfast and ready to leave. There's the bags ready to go on the horses. There's Padam pushing up. Early on the walk, the second morning. Mid-morning on the second day and I've just lost my trekking pole. Came down the other side of that bridge and then across. Lovely green areas and easy day's walk with plenty of rest stops. Crossing the river was a bit tricky. A good sense of balance required here. For the horses though, they had to do it the hard way. Almost there, our leader, king photographer. And for those who couldn't get across the bridge and didn't come across on the horses, they had to negotiate this slippery, wet, wobbly log. Back the way we've just come up. Beginning to feel the altitude now, it's getting harder to climb hills. Campsite at the end of day 2. Nearly 7 o'clock in the morning on the beginning of day 3. Hose down with rain all night. It's dawn fine. It's been quite sunny. The first thing we had to do was cross this river. Once that was done, we could set off. This river didn't have any bridges to do it as best we could. It's incredibly difficult. Cold water, hard rocks, and you couldn't see where you're putting your feet. Kevin does it barefooted. And so does Lee. Alma's always waiting to lend a hand if needed. About the last 40 minutes. Himalayan blue poppy. Stinging nettles. Our camp at the end of day 3, about 3,600 or just under 3,600 metres. Looking down the way we came up this morning. This is looking in the other direction, that's where we're going tomorrow. Round to the left, that last rock spur I think. About 40 minutes, activity on day 4. It's a natural formation in the mountains, that's where we're heading. The rest stop just below the pass. Finally at the top of the Hemdala. Are we 4,200?
Yeah.
This is the top. All the normal paraphernalia. Glad to see it. It's our 4th day out and we're 4,200. It's quite a rapid ascent. Soon the wind and the cloud came sweeping through the pass. We made it just in time. Lunch spot just over the pass. was considerably drier the other side of the watershed. Small avalanche that I didn't quite get on film quite quick enough. Looking back up to the pass we came through yesterday.
First thing we have to do today is cross this river. It was bank to bank last night, under off the glacier further up. And it's looking downstream now we're heading. The way ahead down to the Chonga River on the main road. So we're going to pick up a bus, take us on departure in the valley there.
Was then driving off to Dacha. This computer-generated fly-through shows the route we took. For the bus journey first to Dacha, we turned up the valley towards the Shingola, over the Shingola, and down into the valleys of the Zanskar, past Phukdal Monastery, and on to the broad plains of Padam. We then followed the Zanskar River downstream while the gorge became narrow and we had to leave it, cross into Ladakh, over the Sigila, and down the other side through broken country to Lammeruru Monastery. Then over into the Indus Valley and down towards Leh, weeks ahead. The next section of the trek took us from Dacha up to Jankasumdo, then on camp at Chumik, over the Shingola, down to Lakong, and then to the village of Kargak. We then continued on down the valley to Perni.
This is our camp just before Dacha. In the morning before we set off, starting to climb the Shingola. Bit of a scrappy camp near the road. Shelter for the night.
End of the road for the bus. From here it was all walking. The roadworks are continuing eventually to push on right up over the pass. Dacha Falls. Group of trekkers heading the same way as us.
First camp on the Zanskar and Ladakh section of the trip. We're just a bit below 4,000 metres now, and it does feel it. And tomorrow we go over that ridge and up the valley behind it. We come up the side of the hill.
The steepest part was the first bit.
On the way after about 2 hours. Looks like one of the first money walls we've come across, very small and
Generally compared with what we will see, not very significant. One spot. Fairly rocky sort of place. High mountains all around. This was the day we actually had to cross the pass, the landscape getting more rugged. Ice cliffs along the side of the river. Pretty fast ones. Punch near the top of the Shingalar. Very windy on the top. The watershed of the Himalaya. Down the other side was Zanskar. A cold, high, windy pass. The creek down the other side was full of large blocks of ice. Making their way ahead, looking down at our campsite just past the junction of the two rivers. Rocky campsite. Nest tent. There are the 3 horses in the little nest tent brought up with us last night, so a bit more comfort tonight. Morning of the 13th. Again, just a little while now. Incredible landscape. Nice to be heading downhill. Going down there to the junction of the rivers. Just how good some of the walking is. Some of the boulders and some of the lovely patches around the valley there. Looking back up the way we've come down Gumbunjuan, very imposing mountain that we were to see for the next 2 or 3 days. The sides of the valley were vividly coloured red. Bits of green and blue in it as well. It's our first Zanskari village, Kargek. It's a little way off, but not too far.
sunny afternoon. I was striding out towards it there.
Campsite at Kargak with Gumbanjuan behind. Fellow travellers who decided to come along with us for a bit.
Hello, Julie.
Gumbanjuan's still in the background there. As we entered the Buddhist area, there were more and more money walls.
You really could call this the Chorlton Trail. The whole trail is marked by Chorltons. Corridor coloured. Lunchtime.
Whenever you stopped, you got an audience, normally kids. Richard had just given them a few slices of his apple.
It's the path which is coming on. Hot afternoon, very dry and dusty. I must confess to being rather tired. I camp at Puni. I walk up the gorge to the Foothill Monastery. Path ahead.
This the look past it? Yeah. Yeah. Dalai Lama come from Gelugpa. Yeah.
He has stayed here. And at what age did you come to Foothill?
12 years.
12 years.
After lunch, we headed back. next section of the trip took us from Purne to Iktar, and then a long day's walk to Padam. From there we caught a jeep to Karsha Monastery and walked on to Pishu, and the next day to Hanamal.
This is the gorge. Looking back this way is the confluence of the two rivers. Coming in on the right is the main river, whose name I forget, and on the left is the river that goes up to Fukdal, where we went yesterday. Spot on the 16th, down by the river. Getting ready to go. Very brief lunch break today.
It was only a short walk in the afternoon and we found ourselves in the village of Iktar.
I'm a scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as usual, surrounded by the local kids.
What's happening? Something exciting? Ah, are those the two girls who are herding the goats?
God, yeah.
So 10 and 13-year-olds rounding up the goats.
They go for them. And you go for goats also? No goats, no goats. Ah, right. But are they at school? It was a holiday.
Yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Holiday in India.
Yeah.
Special day.
Yeah.
What is this fellow's name?
Faizan.
Faizan.
Faizan, yeah.
Faizan. I'm Richard. Richard. Yeah. And what is your name?
My name is
Nutuk Tashi. It's very difficult to remember all these names. What is your name? Tunjup Chimjo. Chimjo. And what is your name? Lubzang Zuppa. And Germans also? To the French you say bonjour. Comment ça va?
After this, Richard enticed them to a game of soccer with a tin can.
It's Sunday the 17th today. We're going about an hour, a long day ahead of us, going to Padam. That's the way we've come. And the path is just climbing up. There's a bit of a gorge here that the river goes through. So we have to go up and round it. And the path continues round and up. There's a village just up on the cliff. Waiting a bit in Lammeruru for the others to arrive.
Quite strange when a tourist's eye falls on to take pictures. First thing he said to me was Sava.
Swimming hole for locals.
Here was the start of the road, which was to take us all the way to Padam. After lunch we visited Bardin Monastery seen here and then continued on our way.
So where we're heading, and I have a hunch that town on the hill is down there, is Padam, at least I hope so. Doesn't look too far off through the zoom, but it's actually quite a way. These are the remains of our campsite at Padam. Got in last night, we're packing up now to move on. Most of the tent's down. The kitchen tent, the mist tent rather. Kitchen tent. Kevin having a look round the helicopter wreck.
Karsha Monastery. Plains of Padam stretched out below the monastery. We walked on and found a refreshment tent for lunch. These were all quite common around the place and always seemed to be made of old parachutes.
This is our camp at Pishu. It's been a pretty wet, rainy night. Looks like it's clearing up a bit now. There's tents, the horses come, eager to carry their burdens.
Following down the Zanskar River, at this point it was quite open.
Walking by the swirling waters of the Zanskar River all through the morning now. This is our campsite at Hanamal. After a fairly short day's walk. The morning really.
The next section would take us from Hanamal, Snertsi, Lingshit, over the Snigilar to Photokskar where we had a rest day, then on to Honapata, through the Wanla Gorge to Wanla, and lastly over to Lammeruru, and then down to Leh by four-wheel drive.
It's nearly 9 o'clock on the 20th, which is the 16th day of walking. The Zanskar River Gorge now is beginning to close in. To go up and around a bit. You can see the track there, quite a good path. Quite pleasant walking really. Richard, Jos and Kevin.
For some reason they call this the Chicken Pass.
Well, it's looking into the rocky jumble of the Zanskar gorge. That's why we've had to come up and around, because it just becomes impenetrable at this point. You can just see the prayer flags fluttering from the top. It's quite pleasant just down the other side here.
On the ridge opposite is Snertsi, and the river defines the border between Ladakh and Zanskar.
You make sure he knows, because I'm not walking up any hill that's the wrong hill.
Get up on this flank and
This morning's pass. That's where we came over. And down that zigzag. Campus Nazi.
As usual, it was a very windy campsite. The wind seemed to get up every afternoon and blow rocks and dust all over the place.
The morning of the 21st, we've just taken the tents down, waiting for breakfast at Snertsi. It's the 21st today. I'm going about an hour and we've been following this peak up. We've got about 1,000 metre climb up to the pass, which is about 4.7 I think. And that's the way we've come up this gully.
At this point we were plunged into a snow cave.
10:23 now, and I'm at the junction of the valleys. That's why I've just come up. I say I, because at this time of day I tend to be by myself, can't keep up with the faster three. And Lee is a little way behind there. And that's the valley I don't want to go up. And up here is the way we go. But I think I'm getting near the top now, because I can see prayer flags. They're not as close as that, but they're not too far away.
Top of the Hanamala. Richard was setting off down the slope. Very steep descent.
Pass it up there. Came down the track, you can see. Lunch on that craggy knob. Went down into the valley and came back up here. Down there somewhere is tonight's camp. This is our campsite a few kilometres short of Lingshit.
Just here.
I had the Bon Bon Boys.
Digital cameras always popular with the kids. They like the instant results.
Time. Patience.
Music compa. Wingset Monastery.
Too many.
So the cooking panels. Had them.
Top of the first pass after Lingshit.
There was our lunch spot up against the wall
World expeditions and
an hour ago.
nothing for a month.
And we're on top of the pass at about 4,500, are we?
The second pass of the day, very much steeper, tougher one.
I camped before the Sigula. Got in very late last night, so I didn't have much chance to film it.
Chilly.
Oh, we didn't get in late, but the horses did.
The horses actually went on too far and they had to be retrieved. A lengthy and hazardous process.
Looking forward there, we see Sigila, Lion Pass, 5,100 metres. We've got to go over that today. Quite a way off still. It really does look quite high. It's a terrible sight. Looking forward. On and up. Not quite so steep as the last section, but it's still a long way off to that rear pass. There's the top. I don't know whose horses they are, they're not ours. It's just getting within range now. Shouldn't take too long to get up there.
Top of the Sigila, very windy. Looking back over the Himalaya and Zanskar ranges we've been crossing for the last 2.5 weeks.
We knew you'd be at the parachute. Nose for Pepsi.
We're waiting at the rock and then Tony saw the parachute.
Yeah.
The campsite at Photokskar, one of the few places we stayed 2 nights.
It's our rest day. We're just going down to have a look at the village of Photokskar. Just down here. And we're in Photokskar. This is the shop. It was shut.
Fortunately, we waited around long enough for the shop to open so we could buy some beer. It went down very well with the goat for dinner that night. The goat's name was Daisy. Looking back down to Ladakh.
Just looking ahead to the pass itself. Like a dam wall across the valley. Just looking back to the theough I crossed a few days ago. There's some Richard starting to go up the wall. Still a long way to the top. Top of that Zanskar Pass. 4,800 was it?
Huh?
4,008?
4840.
4840. Just looking back over the last few days, really.
Once over the pass, the going was nice and easy, all downhill and well graded track.
This is the campsite at Lammeruru. It's spread out. It's quite a pleasant sight, I suppose, better than the dusty ones. Few horses there. Kitchen tent down that way. Incredible foliage rocks up there, just above the camp. One of our horses. Another one. In a similar state of excitedness. Here's some more fine animals. If you have a bit of activity here, this one's chewing. And here we have one in the height of activity.
Even standing got too much for this one.
.30 on the morning of the 26th, we just set out 40 odd minutes ago and we're at Lammeruru now. That's the village ahead.
Heading into the Wanda Gorge. This is inside the gorge. The walls towered high above. It was almost impossible to get the scale of the thing on video or still. As usual, there's a chorten in the middle of it.
Richard marching on. At this point the river disappears into a cave.
This is getting near the end of the gorge and you can see where the road has reached into it.
Well, this is the campsite at Wanda. After a fair bit of rain, not too much. The towns or the campsite. Up above it is the Gompa. We're now on the last day. Left one an hour and a half ago or so. And for the last half hour, been plodding up this dry gorge. Looks like it would have a stream in it in the wet season. The way to the top. Fortunately not far off now. It's up here. And this is the top of the last pass. Looking back over the Zanskar range, travelled on for the last few days, weeks.
Lammeruru Monastery, the end of the trail.
The end really does seem close now.
Now sitting in the luxury cafe just below the Gompa.
A lot of people come and camp here. Spend the entire evening in monastery and then go the next day.
We spent our day in Leh visiting the surrounding countryside and seeing the sights of Theough, Shay and Stock. This was the only prayer room on the whole of the trip where we were actually allowed to take photographs or film.
Mani